Hello. Hello, this is Steve Scherer from the city of West Ellis. Hello, can anybody hear me?
You can.
Okay, hey Katie.
Yes, Steve.
Hi. I see we have two other people on the line right now, Doug and Don. Can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Okay. Hi, how are you guys? My name is Steve Scherer from the City Planning Department.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, how are you?
It's Doug Diamond.
Hi, Doug. Just wait for a few more people to come on here and we'll get started. I am recording the presentation this evening too on City's YouTube channel. So if at any point you want to revisit this, you're welcome to. We have a link on our city website to view the stream. See, Nick has just joined us. So we'll give people another minute or so to see if anybody else joins us, but then we'll kick off. I don't have very many very many slides or a very long presentation, but I did want to just broach the subject with property owners, all of which we've been contacted here are zoned manufacturing, and the city is embarking on a rezoning effort. We'll get into that in a little bit here. While we're waiting for maybe a few others to join us here, what properties do you guys represent, or do you own?
I represent the Dawes Rigging property and at let's see, West.
Oh yeah, on off of Walker Street.
Yeah,
North side of the city. Sure. Okay, off of 70th.
I was just curious to know how this, if it would affect this property or not. I have not had a chance to look at the information ahead of time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that, and I'll also I've got my contact information on the last slide. By all means, any follow-up questions after this presentation, you can either talk about it afterward or separately tomorrow or whenever to get your questions answered.
This is Nick Unger. We represent the properties, the Evgaris property at 6600 West Washington and the Westmont property at 6736 Washington.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Okay, and Don, just wanted to ask, what property are you representing? Maybe Don stepped away. Okay, we've got a few other people that have just joined us. It's about 5:05. Can everyone hear me okay? We have Blaine and Doug, Don, and Nick on the line with us here. Katie Bennett's also with us. Katie is one of our lead planners in the development department. My name is Steve Scher. I'm the manager of planning and zoning. And what we have on the front end here is just basically a short presentation that's going to get into what we're doing, why we're doing it, and there'll be ample time afterward for questions. And by all means, our contact information too in the last slide for any follow-up discussions. So why don't we just kick it off here? I guess if we have sort of a short, small group with us here this evening, but if can everyone hear me okay? And we'll kick it off. Can everyone see the screen okay?
And yes, can see the
Okay, good. Okay, so the idea here is to rezone certain areas of the city from M1 manufacturing to M2 manufacturing. And the difference is M1 manufacturing is considered light manufacturing. M2 is a heavy manufacturing district or industrial district. Right now, the city's zoning map just has one type of manufacturing zoning. It's just called M1 manufacturing. And that's been the case since about 1995. The city is operated with just one manufacturing zoning district. And then more recently in 2019, the latter part of 2019, the city actually updated its zoning ordinance to create an M2 or a heavy industrial zoning set of regulations. However, it didn't map those areas. So the mapping exercise has come along as of lately, and that's what we're here to do tonight. So we have basically the ordinance, the regulations for a light manufacturing and a heavy manufacturing district in the zoning books. But on the map, all you're going to see is M1 zoning. So purpose of the zoning exercise is to get this before Planning Commission, the Common Council, and all of you, just to understand what it means and what are the areas involved. So this is the current zoning map within the city. The dark purple areas are the manufacturing zoning districts. Again, those are just called M1 zones right now. And within those existing manufacturing districts, you have everything from drop forges, concrete batch plants to lighter industrial uses like office warehouses, distribution facilities, and so on. The Common Council had wanted us to take a look at bifurcating the zoning a little bit to create a light manufacturing and a heavy manufacturing zoning, so that we could maybe better control some of the types of uses and where they're happening within the city. We were running into a lot of edge conflicts with heavier manufacturing uses in close proximity to residential or other commercial districts, and it wasn't desirable to the Planning Commission or the Common Council. So we decided to embark upon this redistricting of the city's manufacturing areas. These are all the manufacturing properties within the city right now. There's about 1,100 acres of manufacturing district, or about 380, a little over 389 properties. So all of those are currently mapped as M1. And then let me just get into a quick little explanation about what M1 means and what M2 means. M1, in terms of our existing zoning ordinance, means it's basically a low intensity, non-nuisance type of use. Everything from like light manufacturing, some assembly, repair, kitting, labeling, packaging types of uses. Often you'll see warehouses, distribution centers, self-storage, those types of things. Research and development facilities within the M1 light manufacturing. It can be located in proximity to residential and commercial uses. The difference is now with an M2 district. An M2 district is typically larger scale manufacturing facilities where you're going to have a lot higher intensity of manufacturing uses, welding, and heavier types of things that give off perhaps odors or vibrations. Truck freight terminals, for instance, or forge casting shops, concrete batch plants, waste treatment facilities, heavy mechanical or equipment operations. Those are going to be the situations that where we're going to be taking a look at redistricting those to the M2 district. So what we've, everybody see this okay, but the areas that we've identified for potential redistricting to M2, I'll simply just see if I can zoom in a bit here. Primarily on the east end of town. Everybody see this okay? On the east side of town, oops. I think my map moved here off the boundaries, but here. So on the very far east side of town at 54th and Burnham, there's 3 parcels, actually 4 parcels, including a waste transfer station here on the far east side of town. Another 3 parcels along 54th Street, basically from the Union Pacific Railway up to about Rogers Street. A unit drop forge property here on 67th and Beecher Place. And then we have this area here, which includes some of the older Alice Chalmers manufacturing areas, including AC equipment services, the 6600 Washington properties. There's a distribution facility there, Distribution Dynamics, some other properties within that area. And then on the far northwest side of town, off of like 116th Street and Curtis Road, properties such as Zignago, Poblocki Paving, Elite Environmental, a number of other types of manufacturers within that area. So in, again, just taking a closer look at each of these areas that we just generally described before. The first area, if we want to call this like a north, within the first aldermanic district in the northeast side of town. This includes roughly about 8 properties or 33 acres, defined by everything east of 70th Street, north of Washington. There's a small leg of this area here highlighted in yellow. That's AC Equipment Services. And then the rest of this is a distribution facility. And then there's some other utility core pond here and parking structures, some other empty industrial land behind that. And then the old Avalon Rail Siemens property here to the east. So that's the within the first aldermanic district, about 8 properties or 33 acres. Moving on a little further south, these are the 3 properties here along 54th Street, totaling about 24 acres, and then a waste transfer site here. It's a city parcel that the city uses. All the garbage sanitation trucks end up there and dump the garbage in that location where it's picked up and taken away to a landfill from that point. So those are on about 54th and Rogers. There's also a 7-acre parcel here, which is the existing unit drop forge property on 67th Place in Beecher. Moving to the third aldermanic district on 116th and Curtis Road. This is in the northwest corner of the city. You have basically, you may understand where Quad Graphics is on 108th and Theo Trekker. Well, this would be further west of that, this area in yellow here. Places like Zagnago Ready Mix, Industries for the Blind. You have Elite Environmental, blocky paving within this area. That's a list of properties. So, you know, I guess at this point, you know, what does it all mean? You know, as far as the types of uses permitted within light manufacturing and the heavy manufacturing districts, you know, there are going to be certain properties that become non-conforming. You know, so sometimes as part of rezoning efforts, you know, some uses in the study area that we've identified here may become non-conforming. So we've just assembled some common questions, and then from this, I mean, we can launch off into maybe a specific look at the M1 and M2 permitted and special uses, and then, you know, happy to answer any questions from there. But so what is a non-conforming use? When in this case, if the zoning changes, the use becomes non-conforming when the zoning district is applied to a property that does not allow that use. So in other words, we take, for example, a concrete batch plant, say on that northwest corner of the city. If that were to remain in a manufacturing, an M1 light manufacturing district, it would be considered a non-conforming use. So when the zoning ordinance was created in 1995, it permitted those type, you know, concrete batch plants and so on, drop forge establishments as special uses. They were allowed in that M1 manufacturing district, but now with the redistricting and our new M1, M2 zoning ordinance, concrete batch plants and unit drop forge types of establishments, for example, are only allowed in the M2 heavy manufacturing zoning district. They wouldn't be allowed at all in an M1 zoning district for the compatibility reasons with surrounding uses, parks, neighborhoods, and the like, given the vibrations, dust that are frequently emitted from, you know, a heavier, more intense type of use. Another example here is, you know, a property that's zoned M2 district and that is used for heavy manufacturing purposes decides to purchase an abutting property, which is zoned light manufacturing. What would happen in this case is that, you know, the intent of that business, let's just say, is to expand its heavy industrial operations to the new property that they acquired next door. And the problem would be with that is that if that abutting property, you may have the existing business, let's just say Unit Drop Forge, is rezoned to M2, but the abutting property next door is zoned M1. Unit Drop Forge would not be allowed, I guess, to install another drop forge type of business on that abutting property unless it were rezoned to M2. And if it weren't rezoned to M2, the city decided to keep it M1 light manufacturing, Unit Drop Forge, for instance, or any, I guess, heavy manufacturing type of use would be allowed to use it, but in a manner that's conforming to, a use that's permitted within the light manufacturing district. And you can, I guess, the common question is, can you still use the property if it becomes non-conforming? Yes, you can. So the property could continue to be used as it was legally allowed to when the zoning ordinance was established. In the case that the land use remains the same despite the zoning change. In many cases, when the ordinance was created back in 1995, it allowed certain uses that may over time no longer be permitted in that zoning district. But I guess that's what's called commonly or maybe referred to as grandfathering. We call it legal non-conforming type of use. It would continue to be used as a legal non-conforming use as long as there wasn't a lapse in the use of that property. And by lapse, it's usually a 12-month period of time, where if a vacancy occurs after 12 months, or of being vacant for over 12 months, then the use the new use coming in at say month 13 or 14 would have to conform with that zoning district rules. Another question is, when you sell the property, can you continue to use the property as it currently is? And again, the answer is yes. You can continue to use it. The new use is the same as the previous use, and as long as the property is legally occupied within 12 months of vacancy. So one tenant can leave. Let's just say, Pablaki Paving decides to leave, and a new business wants to move in, a similar type of use, asphalt paving or concrete type of batch plant wants to move in. They could, as long as it's not over that 12-month period of time. Another question is, can I change the use of my property if it's non-conforming? And yes, you're allowed to change a non-conforming use to any of the uses permitted within the zoning district on that property. Can I expand an existing non-conforming use? You can, but it would have to be expanded upon the existing parcel. In other words, again, maybe going back to that scenario where one property that exists buys another property next door, and now they want to expand onto that abutting property, it would have to meet the zoning district rules or regulations on that property that it wants to expand to. However, if you're just putting an addition on your existing legal non-conforming site, you could still expand within the confines of the existing property. Another question commonly we get is, what if a property is damaged? Can I rebuild my non-conforming use? And state law will allow this under a section of the state statutes in the event that the loss is caused by natural forces, wind, fire, storm, that type of thing. Can I get a loan to purchase a non-conforming use? Yes, you can. Some lenders, however, ask some additional questions, and may want a zoning verification letter from the zoning or planning department. We commonly do that, but so lenders may have a few extra questions, and in terms of lending practices, they may ask for a zoning letter, verification letter. So right now, I guess maybe before we, and maybe that now is the time to do this, but I could take a look at, if you want, we can jump into the M1 and M2 permitted and special uses, if you'd like. Or, I mean, if you'd rather, maybe at this point, maybe just ask any questions specifically at this point before I keep going on. But what's the consensus of the group? Well, why don't I launch then into the permitted and special uses of district, the manufacturing districts. This is found in chapter 12 of the zoning ordinance on the online municipal code. And then within this, we have the M1 light industrial and M2 heavy industrial zoning districts. There are purpose statements here, and then the various use regulations are boiled down into a table, a use table, which indicates, sort of you have the use on this side or the category of use on this side. And then you have a column for M1 light manufacturing, a column for M2 heavy manufacturing, and then you have use standards. For some types of uses, there are standards in terms of the site layout. For instance, with car dealerships, we require 20% of the site to be landscaped. And in other cases, with car dealerships, again, not to pick on them, but it's a good example. We require a certain minimum size of lot size, 1 acre in size for car dealerships. So, and you'll see here in the use table that some of the things that we allow within the M1 and the M2 zoning districts also include some commercial uses. So you'll see things like different types of animal services, kennels, boarding, grooming, veterinary. Those types of things are often permitted within both of these zoning districts. So that's the first part of this here is we break this down into subcategories under M1 and M2, and then the first part of this are the commercial uses that are more or less allowed within each of the zoning districts. The SU, just to give you an idea of what the SU and the P mean. SU means special use. Some communities call them conditional uses, and the P means permitted. And just going back to that special use, special uses are more or less permitted uses within that zoning district. However, there's some additional steps that the city wants to take just to ensure that they're compatible with the context of the neighborhood. In some cases, the city may regulate the hours of operation. For instance, for like a rock crushing operation or a concrete batch plant. The city may impose a special use on, it's permitted within that zoning district, and in this case, an M2 zoning district, but the city wants to regulate or control a little bit of, the hours of operation, so to sort of ensure that there's some, the surrounding property owners can enjoy their properties and, aren't being, if there are residential properties nearby, that they're not being, certain limits to when you can crush rocks or operate your business. So that's an example of a special use. So you can see here within, all the various commercial uses, and then we move into, it's a little bit hard to see here, but then we broach into the manufacturing and industrial uses within the M1. Again, this first column is M1 and the second column is M2. You can see here is an example of a batch plant, and so a plant that makes asphalt, cement, concrete, stone products, crushing, processing, mixing. They're not allowed. This little dash here means that it's not allowed in the M1 light manufacturing district, but it would be allowed as a special use within the M2 heavy manufacturing district. Breweries, distilleries, microbreweries, and so on, permitted as special uses within the M1, permitted outright in M2. Just go on here. We have a general category too of, we can't really think of every possible use. We can broadly describe, the various, generally speaking types of uses, warehousing, office, those types of things. But in some cases, we just created a category here called light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. Those are described in the purpose statements of the zoning ordinance up above a little bit, just to give you a feel for, kind of like those two slides I described earlier, what the difference was between light and heavy. Again, just sort of generally defining what each is. And in the case that, you don't have a use that lines up exactly with, like a manufacturing laboratory facility or mortar testing facility, within the zoning department, we can make a determination, based on some of the factors you tell us, and we can make a zoning determination that, yeah, we think that's a light manufacturing use, or we think it's a heavy manufacturing use, and thereby, make our zoning determination in that manner. Warehousing, I guess I'll just sort of generally speak about maybe some of these things. Indoor general warehousing, wholesale storage, both permitted uses within M1 and M2. Equipment and material storage yards, outdoor storage. If that's the principal use of the property, you just have a massive outdoor storage yard, that's going to be considered a special use in light manufacturing, but a permitted use in the M2 heavy manufacturing. Public self-storage facilities are permitted within the light manufacturing zoning district, but not in the heavy. Trucking transportation terminals are not allowed in M1 light manufacturing, but they are considered special uses in M2. Warehouse and distribution facilities are special uses in M1, and in the heavy industrial district they're permitted. And we go into a different category of waste and recycling, construction, recycling facilities are special uses in the M2 heavy manufacturing district. Junkyards, again, not permitted in light manufacturing, but special uses in M2 in the heavy manufacturing, and so on. So, at this point, I mean, if there's any specific questions from the audience, we don't have a lot of participants on this call right now, but so maybe that might fit in nicely to maybe Taylor. If you guys have some specific questions about any of this, don't be shy. I guess feel free to ask. We'll do our best to answer your questions at this point, and if we need to follow up, by all means, we will. From this point forward, I guess the idea of the way this would lay out is that we wanted to have this public information meeting tonight just to sort of broach the topic of what we're doing here. As far as the schedule, the next steps, we are going to have a planning commission meeting where we're going to present this, basically the same presentation to the planning commission on December 2nd, and followed by a December 15th common council public hearing. And at this point, I mean, I would expect common council is going to map the areas that we're showing here within the presentation, as laid out in the M2 districts, the roughly about 135 properties, about 135 acres of land. I would expect that they're going to zone those to the M2 district. However, I mean, there's always they don't have to make a decision on that night of the 15th. If there is an outpouring of concern, or if there's more information needed, by all means, they could. They don't have to make a decision that night. They could table it until such time that those questions are answered, and we follow up. So at this point, if there are any questions, I guess let us know. And aside from that, let me just go to the last slide here. Can everyone see this? Are you seeing my contact information?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So this would be, I guess feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address here, sshare, westdallaswi.gov, or we have other planners on staff. Katie Bennett being one of them here tonight. I would say it may even be better just to reach out to us using that planning@westdallaswi.gov email with any questions. And that way, it goes to more than just me. It would be to Katie and Tony, our other planners on staff, where we could address your concerns or any questions for that matter. Katie, while we're at it, do you have anything? Is there anything additional?
No, I think, since we do have, pretty small crowd right now, it might be worth looking at those individual parcels as examples.
Sure.
To see if there's any changes there. And then also just to note that in that chart that Steve was showing with the special uses and the permitted uses, those would only be for any new use that comes in. So if you're an existing use and now that is considered a special use, but it wasn't before, you don't have to do anything at this time. You can still continue operating as you were. It would just be if someone else at a future date tried to come in and do one of those things, they would have to go through the special use process.
Right. So I know we have, when I heard, I know Doug, Doug, you're with Dawes Rigging on 72nd Street. Nick, you're with the 6600 property and 6736 Washington properties. Let's just take a quick look at the at that area. I think we're going to get really close here with respect to these areas here. The roughly 33 acres that we're looking at on the northeast corner of the city, the historic, I guess if you want to call it the Alice Chalmers area. And quite a lot of redevelopment in this area in more recent times with Whitnell Summit and so on, those properties. So yeah, the areas that we're looking at here are roughly 33 acres, which would encompass both the 6600 Washington property as well as the 6736 West Washington properties. So those would be rezoned from M1 light manufacturing to M2 heavy manufacturing. And
would the Dawes property be M2 as well?
The Dawes property is not slated to be rezoned to M2. So that would become, I would say Dawes Rigging. I mean, I know you have a lot of vehicles parked on that site outside. I would guess that that's probably a heavy manufacturing use. We could take a closer look at that, but my guess is that what the scenario here is that would become a legal non-conforming use, meaning that more or less when you establish Dawes Rigging there, prior, it was a legal conforming use. By it not being changed to M2, it becomes legal non-conforming. You can continue to do business on that Dawes Rigging site as you always have. The thing would be that if you ever decided to, I guess, acquire other properties in the area and you wanted to expand, outward outside the confines of your existing property area there, you'd have to get, I guess you wouldn't be able to initially unless you were able to get the property in the areas you were expanding to be an M2 zoning. The concern I would have, I guess, just speaking candidly about rezoning that property to M2 is that given the location between the properties just north of you there in the city of Milwaukee, and then, well, actually south more so, you've got residential neighborhood immediately south, park to the west, a clinic to the east. So, I mean, it's certainly, council could decide that, hey, we want to rezone it to M2, but I guess the question I would have is that, sure, I would agree it's probably a heavy manufacturing use, but by rezoning it to M2, does that fit in with the vision for this area? I think we're trying with the redevelopment of 70th Street, some of the projects that we have on the horizon for this area include like the Alice Yards project, which is going to be a mixed use type of development with apartments, more people living in the area, as well as some other shopping opportunities, maybe a grocery store, a new hotel, some office space at the corner of 70th and Washington, on both sides of 70th Street for that matter, in that area around McKinley Park. So we want to be a little careful about, going to an M2, because what that does is it opens up the gates for, if Dawes ever sells it, you sell it to another use that maybe, a concrete batch plant or something like that that comes in, and now they're crushing rocks at, midnight, and it becomes a problem for the surrounding neighborhood. Dawes I think has been a very good neighbor, especially for this area within the neighborhood here. A well-known company. I would say a pretty quiet user. I mean, I haven't heard of any complaints, but it's the type of thing that over time, if Dawes decides to sell it to someone else and now it's rezoned to M2, what are we going to get? That's the question or the concern I guess I have.
Is there a are the maps that you have there that are interactive? I would be able to locate exactly where our property is on this.
Yeah, this is let me just make sure I'm pointing in the right direction here.
Yeah.
So this is a health clinic here, 70th Street, and then we cross over 72nd Street. Yep,
Okay.
and then this is Dawes right here.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Sure. Yeah. Copperwood Park is right over here to the west.
My recollection is that, so that's residential across the street, or is that commercial?
Yeah. So everything south of the alley. So there's, Dawes rigging here, and then south of you there, in this area here is all residential, single family, two families. Yeah. So I guess in the scenario that now you're, let's just say the zoning goes through on December 15th, council approves this area over here is M2. Okay, so now we're in M1, we're a heavy manufacturing use within a light manufacturing district. Grandfathered use, legal non-conforming. You can continue to do business on that site as you always have. And if you were to sell the property, let's just say you put it on the market, and you wanted to sell the property, and you could sell it to another similar type of operation, as long as it doesn't lapse over that, within a 12-month period of time, another similar type of use could come in and occupy the space, as you've used it for years, decades. The problem would be that if you had it on the market and it didn't sell, and over a year down the road, you'd have to, whatever new use would be interested in your property would have to conform with the existing zoning district of the light manufacturing zoning district. So that's the scenario, I guess, with Dawes rigging specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Does anybody else have any questions? With the 6600 properties and 6637 Washington properties, are there any specific concerns to becoming an M2 heavy manufacturing zone? I guess some of the differences, the main one I guess I would say is going to be that there's going to be certain things that aren't allowed in an M2 district. It's going to usually be things like residential, certain commercial uses maybe, but for the most part, I guess it's an area of the city where, most things that are allowed in some of the lower districts, like M1 zoning district and the C4 zoning district, are going to be allowed here. The same thing goes with the M1, but yeah, I don't know if you have any specific concerns, Nick.
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay. With other people on the call right now, maybe they left. So I think that's it for my presentation. Again, I'm really happy to stay on the line here. I've got this time slot reserved till 7. So I guess I will be monitoring to see if anybody else pops in for a quick overview. But in the meantime, if anybody else has questions, just I guess let me know either tonight or we can feel free to email me or Katie for that matter. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. I'll follow up with you separately later after I've had a chance to look at this in more detail.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm going to leave the meeting now, but I appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Let me just thanks, Katie, for joining us tonight. I'm just going to